Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome back to Chapter 1 and Beyond. And today's episode is actually coming kind of early because I finished all three of the books from the mini-series episode that got launched this past Tuesday. So I want to talk about all these books. I want to tell you about whether I am going to keep them for a reread on my shelf or if I'm going to trash them and donate them, or if they just got returned back to the library and they were a good time. Um, so yeah, let's dive right into it. So, the three books that were mentioned during Try It or Trash It episode 1 were The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo, which I physically owned, A Song Below Water by Bethany C. Morrow, which I also physically owned, and Sometimes I Lie by Alice Feeney, which I did not physically own. So thoughts on The Familiar. So I was very hyped up about this book. I ended up DNFing this book. um, so you can guess that this is a physical book that I do own. I will be donating it to a free little library in Northeast Ohio, and I I kept hearing about how this was a um, vampire esque book, and I did not get that vibe. Maybe I don't know. Like, I got 45% of the way through this. I was listening to this on audiobook, and I could not get into this book. I was kind of bored. I'm gonna be completely honest. Um, I come from like the vampire-esque books that are like Anne Rice, like Interview with a Vampire and things like that. And I guess like Anne Rice really painted a beautiful picture for myself, like when it comes to vampires, because um this one, like, just definitely did not scream vampire. It like kind of was more of like historical fiction and like kind of like alchemy based magic. I don't know. Like, I was just really confused, I guess. And I like I said, I was very bored, and um you know I really personally couldn't. I don't know. Like, Lucia was one of the characters, like she actually harnessed the magic, and I just, without giving anything away, I just couldn't really I really couldn't connect with the characters in any way, shape, or form, nor could I like really kind of, see where it was going, because it was just very slow, and to me it just dragged in many of the parts, and it just felt like I was thrown like all these characters, but I just couldn't really see like any chemistry, or it just felt really forced. So I ended up DNFing that one. So this next one is kind of funny because I know in episode 1 I had mentioned how nervous I was about this book and how I have previously DNF'd this book. I actually gave this a 5 stars. I loved it. I will be donating this book even though I loved it so much. And I really do feel like this book was all about being in like the type of mode or mood that I need to be to read like a siren-esque book. But it was interesting because it mixed like the Black Lives Matter movement and how like it mixed that entire issue esque. I don't know how to like really word it, but it like mixed that bit in with the sirens, and I thought that was really clever. And I thought, this issue is really, really important, especially this day and age. And I thought it was really well done. I mean, I was definitely I consumed it on audiobook this time, and maybe that made a difference. I don't know. Um but I loved it. and I definitely recommend it. And I'm really happy that I did read it because, I really empathized with, the characters and the sisters and just everything that was kind of going on and like their purpose and their like drive to just make it, another day and push through with the issues that matter to them. And I was really rooting for them throughout that book. And I, even though I am donating it, I'm really glad that I can kind of pass this along to another reader to read, because I definitely feel like this is a book that needs to be read. So, so yeah, I absolutely loved it. 5 stars, hands down. Amazing book, and it wasn't like totally in your face, like this matters and you need to care. It like, she like Bethany Morrow definitely did a beautiful job of, you know, getting you to see through the characters' eyes, like what mattered to them, and their relationship dynamic with the sisters and everything else. So I just found it really, really well done. So, and then the third book I had mentioned in episode 1 was Sometimes I Lie by Alice Feeney. And okay, I don't physically own this book. And I'm actually kind of, in a way, I'm kind of glad that I don't physically own this book, because I really can't see myself rereading this book after that wild, crazy ride that I went on with this book. So, um, I gave it a 5 star. I was very much like confused and flabbergasted and overall just like what just happened. I felt like I was being like whiplashed back and forth, if you will, with um this book. And it was totally different than the setup like with Beautiful Ugly. I feel like a lot of these thriller authors will go with like a similar like format for each of their books, but this one in particular did not fall along with like the build and the back and forth like it did with Beautiful Ugly, which I appreciated, because like I can't stand authors that do that with every single book that they write. I want something different and I want a variety. And she really gave it to me in this one, but it was very dark, a lot darker than I thought it was going to be. And it was very, very good, but there were points where I'm like, okay, I'm questioning. I need to go back reread, but I'm like, wait, she said that, and like I was starting to really second guess throughout the entire book. And it was fun, like, reading it with my friend Kristen, because like she had certain theories. And maybe I'll go into like the theory she had as well, but I don't want to give anything away. Like I don't want it to be, spoiler or anything like that, but it really was like you really had to like question like what you were reading, because it almost came off as it could be something else, or it could be um a similar like character or whatever. So it was really interesting. um it was definitely about a woman. Like they open it up like the book with this woman that's in a coma, and she can hear. And there was like some very disturbing parts like when she was in a coma, and I'm not going to talk about it because like it really is a trigger warning. I definitely recommend looking into the trigger warnings, because like I really wish I would have known. But yeah, like it was good. And I am glad that I read it, but it's like a one and done for me as well. Okay, so I think that was a success. I mean, 2 out of the 3 books I ended up like reading all the way through, and I mean, 2 of those books ended up being 5 stars. So I'm pretty happy about this. So I guess where do we go from here? Because I was really supposed to release this on next Tuesday, but since I finished these books so fast, like a lot of these books were short. They were smaller books. Like Sometimes I Lie was under 300 pages, along with A Song Below Water That one was also under 300 pages. And since I had DNF the familiar halfway in, I didn't really get through all of it, but that was, I believe that was over 300 some odd pages. But um, so I do have my try it or trash it wheel spun up here. I have realized though that 3/4 of the entries that I put in were not saved. So we're just gonna go with the 339 entries that are in there right now, most of which are my physically owned. So I think this spinning wheel is going to start being favored towards my physical TBR shelf. But I think like going forward, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add to my list, to my wheel after we get through a certain number of them, maybe like 50 or something, and I'll start adding more from my want to read list. But I did initially go through my want to read list on hardcover and start eliminating books that I think got accidentally added. There was a lot of duplicates too. So I do have to watch like in the future. I just want to make a note of that to myself, whether anybody cares or not. But um, like a hardcover app, I have noticed that if you add different like editions, it doesn't matter. It will add it as a separate want to read. So my want to read list was like completely thrown off. Um, but looking at like my want to read list currently right now, I have 663 books on that want to read list. And then I believe 189 of those books were physically owned. I believe, if I remember correctly. I'm noticing a lot of my stats and stuff are not accurate, so I'm going to be a little bit more careful like when I do wrap up videos and things like that. So I do apologize. Some of my stats have not been accurate. Um, but I did report it to the developers so that they can take a look at that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a spin, like we did last episode. So technically now we're in episode 2 of Try It or Trash It, but I did like a very poor job of explaining what this is. So I want to revisit how I'm doing this. So what I did was I put together this wheel. I want to get up to 3 books on my physical TBR, to either give it a whirl or get rid of it altogether. So what I want to do is I'm either going to read the first chapter or the excerpt. Last episode, I did just read the excerpt with a lot of these. And then what I'll do is I'll get to a certain point and I'll determine whether or not I want to continue with that book or I'm just going to get rid of it altogether. And then when I'm finished with those books that I do want to try, I'm going to give you guys my full feedback, spoiler free, of course, my rating, and then, whether or not I'm donating it or keeping it on my shelf for a reread. So I think that's a little bit more simplistic than what I tried to do in the first episode. So I apologize for that. We are working through this. So, um, okay. So let's do the first spin and see where it lands. Because I do have a lot of series on my physical shelves, and if I land on something that's um oh, okay. So yeah, like I was mentioning while that was spinning, I have a lot of series that I'm in the middle of or I haven't started or I'm not that far into it, but I could potentially land on a series that is, you know, um, like many books in the future where I'm not currently at. But I did land on The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. That is the first in the Poppy War series. I have had this on my physical shelf for several years. So I do physically own this book. I will be trying this. This is a pretty popular, hyped up book that is on BookTube and Um, I feel like honestly too, it's on Book Talk as well. Um, so yeah, I will be trying that one. I don't feel like I need to explain that particular book. I mean, I guess for formalities, I probably should though. I'm gonna look it up because I know that book is particularly upstairs, and I am not going upstairs to grab that right now. So, but according to hardcover. This is an epic historical military fantasy inspired by the bloody history of China's 12th century and filled with treachery and magic. When Ren aced Kyujo, the Empire wide test to find the most talented youth to learn at the academies, it was a shock to everyone, to the test officials who couldn't believe a war orphan from Rooster province could pass without cheating, to Rin's guardians who believed they'd finally be able to marry her off and further their criminal enterprise, and to Ren herself who realized she was finally free of the servitude and despair that she made up her daily existence. That she got into Senegard, the most elite military school in Nikon, was even more surprising. But surprises aren't always good, because being a dark skinned peasant girl from the south is not an easy thing to at Senegard. Targeted from the outset by rival classmates for her color, poverty, and gender, Rin discovers she possesses a lethal, unearthly power, an aptitude for the nearly mythical art of shamanism. Shamanism? Oh, interesting. Exploring the depths of her gift with the help of a seemingly insane teacher in psychoactive substances, Ren learns that gods long thought dead are very much alive, and that mastering control over those powers could mean more than just surviving school. For while the Nicara Empire is at peace, the Federation of Mugen still lurks across a narrow sea. The military Advanced Federation occupied Nikan for decades after the First Poppy War and only barely lost the continent in the second. And while most of the people are complacent to go about their lives, a few are aware that a third Poppy War is just about to spark. So this is a young adult fantasy, war driven book, and I've been wanting to pick this up. I've been putting it off, and putting it off. So, I have very high hopes for this book. This is actually the first book that I probably should have picked up by R.F. Kuang. Instead, Catabasis ended up turning out to be that one because I also stopped reading Babel in the middle of that book. So yeah. So that is the description. I am predicting this to be probably around I think I probably I'm predicting it now that I'm probably going to give it around a 4 or 4.5 stars. So this was published in 2018, at least the edition I have, and it is 527 pages. So we shall see how I feel after reading it, and I will have a week to fulfill this, or if it happens faster, then you might hear sooner. So, all right. So let's do Spinny Spin for number two. All right. So book two is A Short Stay in Hell by Stephen L. Peck. I do not physically own this book. I'm looking on Libby, and it does look like the electric book is available for borrowing. And the description says an extraordinary family man, geologist and Mormon, Soren Johansson, has always believed he'll be reunited with his loved ones after death in an eternal hereafter. Then he dies. Soren wakes to find himself cast by a god he has never heard of into a hell whose dimensions he can barely grasp. a vast library he can only escape from by finding the book that contains the story of his life. In this haunting existential novella, author, philosopher, and ecologist Stephen L. Peck explores a subversive vision of eternity, taking the reader on a journey through the afterlife of a world where everything everyone believed in turns out to be wrong. And it looks like Dan Wells, author of I Am Not a Serial Killer, said, profound and disturbing. A Short Stay in Hell is a perfect blend of science fiction, theology, and horror, a terrifying meditation on faith, human nature, and the relentless scope of eternity. It will haunt you fittingly for a very, very long time. Okay. I don't even know how this ended up on my want to read list. I don't know of any booktube or book talk channel that I follow or listen to that had recommended this book. I have no idea how this got on my list, but I'm very intrigued. So I'm gonna borrow the electric because I'm very curious on how many pages are in this. It says it's a novella, so I'm assuming. Oh, electric pages are only 118 pages. Okay, so it's a short one. Let's see. I'm going to add this to my try it, especially after this description. And I'm going to note that it is 118 pages. I really don't know how this got on my list, but hey, we're going to give it a whirl. But yeah, I mean, if you guys have heard of this book, or if you know of what booktube channel may have exposed me to this, I'm actually going to go through my watch history because I have no idea how this got on my list. But yeah, no, that's the beauty of it. So it looks like this was done, looks like it was published in 2011. I have it on my hardcover want to read list. It looks like it's a science fiction dystopian fantasy. Um, by that description, definitely would totally see that. Average ratings are about 4.1. Interesting. Okay. Well, I'm gonna say this is probably gonna be around a 3.5 star, 4 star for me. So that's my predicted rating on this, and I'm definitely going to try it. So yeah, we'll see how this one goes. But hey, you know, worst comes to shove, I have another one off of my want to read list. All right, so we're up to 2 books so far. Let's see what comes next. Oh my gosh. Okay. I have to do it. I have to. Because I physically own this book. This book has also been on my shelf for I don't know how long. I couldn't even tell you how long this book has been on my shelf because I got this from Book of the Month. I've had this on previous um want to read TBRs in the past that I've done, and I have to say I've done a really poor job of executing through this. I do physically own this book. It's called Other Birds by Sarah Addison Allen. Um, Let me load up. Well, let me go grab the book. Hang on. Okay, so this is under 300 pages. It was the September 2022 pick for Book of the Month. And it's got a very cute blue birds on the front with a gold cage. So maybe that's why I was enticed by this one. But it looks like inside the cover it says, from the acclaimed author of Garden Spells comes an enchanting tale of lost souls, lonely strangers, secrets that shape us, and how the right flock can guide you home. Down a narrow alley in the small coastal town of Malo Island, South Carolina, lies a stunning cobblestone building comprised of 5 apartments. It's called the Della Wisp, and it is named after the tiny turquoise birds who, alongside the human tenants, inhabit an air of magical secrecy. When Zoe Hennessy comes to claim her deceased mother's apartment at the Dulles Wisp, she meets her quirky, enigmatic neighbors, including a girl on the run, a grieving chef whose comfort food does not comfort him, two estranged middle aged sisters, and three ghosts, each with their own story, each with their own longings, each whose ending isn't yet written. When one of her new neighbors dies under odd circumstances the night Zoe arrives, she is thrust into the mystery of the Della Wisp, which involves missing pages from a legendary writer whose work might be hidden there. She soon discovers that many unfinished stories permeate the place, and the people around her are in as much need of healing from wrongs of the past as she is. To find their way, they have to learn how to trust one another, confront their deepest fears, and let go of what haunts them. Delightful and atmospheric, Other Birds is filled with magical realism and moments of pure love that won't let you go. Sarah Addison Allen shows us that between the real and the imaginary, there are stories that take flight in the most extraordinary ways. Every time I read that excerpt, I'm like, yes, I want to read this, but why have I continued to not finish this book? I know I've had this on my shelf for a while, so it's time. It is totally time. So once again, I have two physically owned books that I will be reading, one library read. If I could find the audiobook for A Short Stay in Hell, that would actually work because that one's only about 3 hours long. So I think I might try to get the audiobook as opposed to a electric electronic book. I have a really hard time with reading on e-readers, which is why I physically get a book or listen to it. So, otherwise my eyes get slightly strained. But all right, so I mean, I'd say like this series is panning out really well. So, so yeah, those are the three books that I will be reading for this next episode. Let me know your thoughts if you've read any of these books. I know this is a very odd list because we have a fantasy, magical realism, and then we have fantasy science fiction dystopian. So it's going to be a real wild mix. Um, Two books that I probably should have read years ago, and now one I have no idea how it got even on my list. So, but yeah, we can knock off at least three more books off of the try it or trash it wheel. Because obviously once we visit these books, we can get them off of my wheel. So yay. But yeah, I hope you guys are having a great day. And I hope you have happy readings. If you have read these books, let me know wherever you consume this podcast. And I hope you have a great day. Thank you. Until next episode, take care. Bye.